snow swallowed the world whole. It fell in thick, merciless sheets, erasing tracks, smothering sound, burying mistakes. In the northern territories, winter was not a season, it was a verdict. And tonight, it had been passed on Elias. He stumbled through the white expanse, breath tearing painfully from his chest, each inhale burning as if his lungs were lined with glass. His cloak hung in tatters, soaked through, offering little protection against the biting wind that cut straight to bone. The scent of fear clung to him, sharp, unmistakable, damning. Omega. The word had always defined his life. Long before it nearly ended it, Elias had been running for hours, maybe longer. Time dissolved in the cold, minutes stretching into agony, hours collapsing into desperation. His legs shook violently, muscles screaming with exhaustion, but stopping meant death, not just from the cold, but from what hunted him. His heat had come early, too strong, too impossible to hide. The village elders had smelled it before he even realized what was happening. Fear had flashed in their eyes, followed by something colder, calculation. An unmated Omega in heat was not a person to them. He was a liability, a resource, a problem to be solved. So they had solved it by sending him into the snow. Run, they had told him, voices tight with false mercy. If you survive, fate has spared you. Fate, Elias thought bitterly, had never been kind. His foot caught on something hidden beneath the snow. A root, a rock, maybe nothing at all. He went down hard, the impact knocking the air from his lungs. He tried to push himself up, fingers numb and uncooperative, but his body refused. The wind howled louder, as if sensing weakness. Tears burned in his eyes, freezing instantly on his lashes. His heat flared again, a cruel betrayal, flooding his body with warmth that only made the cold feel sharper by contrast. His scent spilled into the air, sweet, aching, vulnerable. A beacon. I don't want to die, he whispered, voice nearly lost to the storm. The snow kept falling. For a long moment, Elias lay there, cheek pressed into the ice, watching his breath fog weakly before him. His thoughts drifted, memories of warmth, of hands that had once been gentle, of a life that might have been different if he had been born anything else. Then, a sound, faint, muffled by wind and distance, footsteps. Elias's heart lurched painfully, panic surged through him sharp and wild. Alpha, it had to be. No one else would be out here in this storm. He tried to crawl, to move, but his body betrayed him again. His fingers curled uselessly into the snow. The footsteps drew closer. A shadow loomed through the white haze, tall and broad, moving with deliberate strength that cut through the storm as if it had every right to be there. Elias's scent spiked in fear, heat flaring uncontrollably. No, please, he tried to say, but the words came out broken, barely sound at all. The figure stopped. For a terrible second, the world held its breath. Then a voice, low, startled, unmistakably real, cut through the storm. Someone's out here, not cruel, not hungry, concerned. Strong hands reached him, firm but careful, rolling him onto his back. Elias squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for pain, for possession, for the end. But it didn't come. Instead, warmth surrounded him. Thick furs, a solid chest, an arm braced protectively around his shoulders. The Alpha's scent washed over him. Pine, steel, winter air. Powerful. Controlled. Hey, stay with me, the Alpha said urgently. You're freezing. Elias's eyes fluttered open. The Alpha's face was half obscured by snow and hood, but his eyes, sharp, storm gray, locked onto Elias with something like shock. You're an Omega, the Alpha breathed. Elias tensed, fear spiking again. Please, he whispered. I won't slow you down, just don't leave me here. The Alpha stared at him for a heartbeat longer. Then, without hesitation, he swore under his breath, shrugged off his cloak, and wrapped it tightly around Elias's shaking form. Idiot, the Alpha muttered, not unkindly. You'll die if I do. He scooped Elias up into his arms with startling ease, lifting him from the snow as if he weighed nothing at all. Elias gasped softly, the sudden warmth and motion overwhelming. His head fell against the Alpha's shoulder, consciousness slipping. Dangerously. What's your name? The Alpha asked, already moving, boots crunching decisively through the snow. Elias, he murmured. I'm Rowan, the Alpha replied, and you're not dying tonight. I swear it. As Rowan carried him through the storm, Elias felt something unfamiliar stir beneath the fear and exhaustion. Hope. The snow still fell, the cold still clawed at them. But for the first time, Elias was no longer alone in it, and that cry, his cry, had changed everything. Rowan had faced blizzards before. He had crossed mountain passes where the wind screamed like a living thing and hunted game in conditions that broke weaker alphas. Snow did not frighten him. Cold did not slow him. But the Omega in his arms? That terrified him. Elias burned against Rowan's chest, a dangerous, unnatural warmth that clashed violently with the frozen world around them. Even through layers of furs and wool, Rowan could feel it, the fevered heat, the tremor in Elias's body that spoke of something far worse than simple exposure. Heat, and it was bad. Rowan swore again under his breath and tightened his grip, adjusting Elias so his head was protected from the wind. The Omega's breathing was shallow, lips parted, scent spilling freely now. Sweet, desperate, pleading without words. Anyone else would have followed that scent. Rowan forced his jaw to unclench. Damn village, he muttered. He didn't need to see their faces to know what they'd done. Exiling an Omega in heat into a winter storm wasn't mercy. It was execution without blood on their hands. He moved faster, boots crunching through deepening snow, every instinct screaming at him to get Elias under a roof before the cold, or the heat, killed him. A hunting cabin lay a mile north. Rowan had used it seasons ago, a rough shelter meant for emergencies. He prayed the storm hadn't collapsed it. Elias stirred weakly in his arms. Cold, he whispered, then frowned, confusion crossing his pale face. No, hot, too hot. I know, Rowan said quietly. Stay with me. Elias's fingers twitched, clutching instinctively at Rowan's coat. The contact sent a jolt through Rowan's spine, sharp, dangerous, unwanted. His alpha instincts surged, reacting to the Omega's need. The vulnerability pressed so close to his chest. He gritted his teeth. Not like this, not ever like this. The cabin appeared through the snow like a half-buried shadow, its roof heavy with ice. Relief slammed into Rowan so hard it nearly buckled his knees. Almost there, he murmured. He kicked the door open and stepped inside, slamming it shut behind them. The sudden silence was deafening. Snow thudded against the walls, but the wind was gone. Rowan lowered Elias onto a narrow cot near the wall, immediately shedding his outer layers. He moved fast, methodical. This was survival, not hesitation. Elias whimpered as the cold air touched his overheated skin, curling in on himself. Easy, Rowan said, grabbing blankets. I've got you. He layered the blankets carefully. Oh, too heavy. Too much warmth could make the heat worse. Elias's skin was flushed, damp with sweat despite the freezing temperatures. Rowan's stomach tightened. This wasn't just early heat. This was dangerous. Elias's scent thickened in the confined space, curling around Rowan's senses whether he wanted it to or not. His alpha instincts pushed forward hard, demanding response, demanding action that Rowan refused to give. Instead, he forced himself to focus on the fire. The hearth was cold, unused, but the flint still worked. Rowan struck sparks until flame caught, coaxing it carefully, keeping it low and controlled. Warmth filled the cabin slowly. Elias cried out softly. Rowan was at his side instantly. The Omega was trembling now, body caught between fever and frost. His eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. "Rowan?" he murmured, voice breaking around the name as if it anchored him. "I'm here," Rowan said, kneeling beside the cot. "You're safe." Elias shook his head weakly. No, I'm not. I can feel it. His breath hitched. "I'm wrong. I shouldn't." "Stop," Rowan said firmly. "You're not wrong. You're sick. That's all." Elias's laugh came out fractured, almost hysterical. "That's not what they said." Rowan's hands curled into fists at his sides. "They were wrong," he said flatly. Elias turned his face away, tears slipping free. "They said I'd ruin someone, that I'd cause fights, deaths, that an Omega like me, unbonded, unclaimed, was dangerous." Rowan's chest tight. "Ned, dangerous, that word again." Elias gasped suddenly, back arching as another wave of heat tore through him. Rowan reacted instantly, bracing him gently, keeping him from thrashing. "Easy," Rowan murmured, fighting his own instincts with every ounce of discipline he had. "Breathe. Look at me." Elias's eyes locked onto his, wide and terrified. "Please," he whispered, Don't let me hurt anyone." The words hit Rowan harder than the storm ever could. "You won't," Rowan said, voice low but absolute. "I won't let that happen." Elias stared at him, as if trying to understand something beyond words. Slowly, his breathing eased, just a fraction, but it was enough. Rowan stayed there for hours. He fed the fire, monitored Elias's temperature, kept his own scent carefully controlled, neutral, grounding. Every instinct screamed at him to claim, to bond, to solve the problem the brutal way nature offered. He refused, because Elias was not a problem to be solved. He was a person. At some point near dawn, Elias's trembling lessened. He drifted into a restless sleep, brow still furrowed, but his breathing steadier. Rowan finally allowed himself to sit back, exhaustion crashing over him like a second storm. He stared at the sleeping Omega, guilt gnawing at his chest. If he left, Elias would die. If he stayed, the heat would worsen. If he claimed him without consent, he would become everything the village feared. And yet, Rowan reached out, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of amp hair from Elias's forehead. "No one should survive like this," he murmured. Outside, the storm howled on. Inside the cabin, fate shifted quietly, irrevocably, because the cry in the snow hadn't just saved Elias's life. It had bound Rowan to him in a way neither of them yet understood. And the hardest choice was still ahead. Elias woke burning, not the clean, sharp heat of fire, but something deeper, heavier, coiled tight beneath his skin like a living thing. His body ached with it. Every nerve hummed, oversensitive, painfully aware of itself and of the presence beside him, Alpha. The realization slammed into him all at once. He tried to pull away, panic flaring, but his limbs felt sluggish, weighed down by exhaustion and fever. The blankets tangled around him, trapping warmth he no longer wanted, couldn't escape. "Easy." The voice was low, steady. "Rowan." Elias forced his eyes open. The cabin was dim, lit only by the low glow of embers in the hearth. Rowan sat close, too close. His back against the wall, knees drawn up, posture rigid with restraint. He looked as though he hadn't slept at all. For a moment, Elias simply stared. Rowan was bigger than he remembered, broader, solid in a way that made the small space feel even smaller. His jaw was unshaven, eyes shadowed with fatigue, but alert, always alert. Watching him, fear prickled through Elias's haze. His voice broke immediately. He swallowed, throat dry. "I'm sorry." Rowan frowned. "For what? For this?" Elias gestured weakly to himself, to the sweat-damp blankets, the air thick with his scent. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't do anything wrong," Rowan cut in, firmer this time. Elias flinched anyway. They always say that at first, he whispered. Rowan went very still. Who, he asked carefully, is they? Elias closed his eyes. The memories came unbidden, stern faces turned backs, the way the elders had avoided touching him even as a child, how they'd whispered when his secondary gender presented stronger than expected, how every early heat had been treated like a looming disaster. My village, he said, they said I'd cause trouble, that unbonded omegas like me, we unbalance packs, make alphas fight, kill each other. Rowan's hands curled slowly into fists. And did you? He asked. Elias laughed weakly. No, I ran, I always ran. Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Rowan shifted, then deliberately moved a little farther away, increasing the distance between them despite the cold. The action didn't go unnoticed. Elias's chest tightened. You don't have to stay, he said quietly. I know what happens if you do. My heat will get worse. You'll want to. I already want to, Rowan interrupted bluntly. Elias froze. Rowan met his gaze head-on, storm gray eyes unflinching. I'm an alpha. Your scent is everywhere. My instincts are screaming at me to solve this the fastest way possible. Elias's breath hitched. But, Rowan continued, voice controlled to the point of strain. Wanting something doesn't mean I get to take it. Something inside Elias cracked. No alpha had ever said that to him before. You could leave, Elias whispered again. Before it gets worse. Rowan shook his head once. If I leave, you die. The certainty in his voice stole Elias's breath more effectively than the cold ever had. I won't do that, Rowan added. Not to you. Elias stared at him, heart pounding painfully in his chest. Why? Rowan hesitated. Because, he said slowly, someone once did it to my sister. Elias's breath caught. She was an omega, Rowan continued, gaze fixed on the fire now. Unmated, strong scent. The pack decided she was inconvenient. His jaw tightened. They sent her away during winter. Said fate would decide. Elias knew the rest without being told. She didn't come back. Rowan finished quietly. The cabin felt suddenly too small to contain the weight of those words. I'm sorry, Elias whispered. Rowan nodded once. So am I. A sharp wave of heat rolled through Elias without warning, stealing his breath. He gasped, curling inward instinctively, fingers clutching the blanket. Rowan was at his side instantly, but he stopped short, hands hovering, clearly fighting himself. Talk to me, Rowan said. What do you feel? Too much, Elias choked. My skin, it hurts. Everything's too close. I can't. His voice fractured. I don't want to lose myself. Rowan swallowed hard. You won't, he said. I won't let you. How? Elias demanded weakly. You can't stop a heat forever. Rowan exhaled slowly. There is another way, he said. Elias stilled. What way? A bonding suppressant, Rowan said. Temporary, painful, risky in this weather. He met Elias's gaze again. But it would get you through the worst of it without claiming you. Hope flared, and fear with it. Why would anyone choose that? Elias asked. Because claiming someone who doesn't choose you back is worse, Rowan replied simply. Elias stared at him, chest aching with more than heat now. Will it hurt? He asked. Yes, Rowan said honestly. Elias closed his eyes, trembling. Then he nodded. Do it, he whispered. Please. Rowan moved fast. He retrieved a small vial from his pack, hands steady despite the tension coiled through him. He knelt beside the cot, close enough now that Elias could feel the alpha's controlled power like gravity. Look at me, Rowan said. Elias did. Rowan injected the suppressant carefully, jaw clenched as Elias cried out softly, body arching as the drug burned through his veins. Rowan braced him, not holding, not claiming, just anchoring him through the pain. I've got you, Rowan said over and over. You're not alone. Breathe. Just breathe. The pain crested, then slowly, mercifully ebbed. Elias collapsed back against the cot, shaking, exhausted beyond words. Rowan stayed exactly where he was. When Elias finally dared open his eyes again, Rowan was still there, watching, guarding, choosing him again and again. "You stayed," Elias whispered. "Red." "Yes," Rowan said. The storm continued outside, but inside the cabin, something irrevocable had shifted. Not a claim, not a bond, but a choice. And that choice, made in the heart of winter, would change the Omega's fate forever. The suppressant bought them time. But time, Elias quickly learned, was not peace. His heat dulled to something manageable. No longer a raging inferno, but a slow, aching burn beneath his skin. Enough to keep him conscious, enough to keep him himself. But it came at a cost. Pain lingered in his veins like ice shards. His body felt heavy, uncooperative, and every movement sent a dull throb through his muscles. He lay still on the cot, staring up at the low wooden beams of the cabin ceiling, listening to the fire crackle and the storm rage outside. Rowan had not moved far. He sat near the hearth, back straight, sharpening a knife that didn't need sharpening, an excuse to stay alert, to stay grounded. Every so often his gaze flicked to Elias, checking, assessing, making sure the Omega was still breathing, still here. Elias noticed. "You don't have to watch me like that," he said softly. Rowan didn't look up. "Yes, I do." Elias swallowed. "Why?" This time Rowan paused, the knife stilled in his hand. "Because if the suppressant fails," Rowan said carefully, "you'll need someone strong enough to keep you safe without taking advantage." Elias's chest tightened. "And you think that's you?" Rowan finally met his gaze. "I know it is." The certainty in his voice made Elias's breath hitch, not with fear, but with something warmer, more dangerous. Trust. It settled between them uneasily. The hours passed slowly. The storm showed no sign of easing. Snow piled higher against the cabin walls, sealing them in, isolating them from the world. They rationed food and water carefully, moving only when necessary. When Elias tried to stand, his legs buckled almost immediately. Rowan was there in an instant, catching him before he fell. "Easy," Rowan murmured. Elias froze. He could feel Rowan's hands, firm, respectful, holding him exactly where needed and nowhere else. The contact sent a tremor through him, heat flaring weakly in response. Rowan felt it too. His breath stuttered once, just barely, but his grip remained steady. "Sorry," Elias whispered instinctively. Rowan frowned. "Stop apologizing for existing." The words hit harder than the cold ever had. Elias let Rowan help him back to the cot, cheeks burning. Not from heat this time, but from something dangerously close to hope. That night, the suppressant began to wear thin. Elias woke shaking, sweat dampening his skin, scent thickening despite his best efforts to control it. Panic clawed at him, sharp and immediate. Rowan was awake before Elias even spoke. "I feel it," Elias whispered. "It's coming back." Rowan moved closer, stopping just short of touching. "I know," he said. "Talk to me." "I'm scared," Elias admitted, voice cracking. "What if I lose control? What if I—" "You won't," Rowan said firmly. "And if you do, I'll still be here. You won't face it alone." Elias laughed weakly. "You say that like it's easy." "It's not," Rowan replied honestly. "But it's right." Another wave hit Elias, stronger this time. He curled inward, nails digging into the blanket, breath coming fast and shallow. "Rowan," he whispered. Rowan hesitated, then made a deliberate choice. He sat beside the cot, close enough that Elias could feel his warmth, close enough that Rowan's controlled scent wrapped around him like a shield rather than a trigger. "Anchor to me," Rowan said quietly. "Listen to my voice. Match your breathing to mine." Elias did. In, out, slow, steady. The heat didn't vanish, but it didn't consume him either. Minutes passed. Then more. When the wave finally eased, Elias sagged back, exhausted beyond measure. Tears slipped down his temples. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Why you're doing this, why you care." Rowan was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Because no one did for her. And because I won't let the world teach you that you're only valuable when claimed." Elias turned his head, meeting Rowan's gaze. "And what if," he asked quietly, "one day I want to choose?" Rowan's breath caught. "Then," he said slowly, "that choice will be yours. Fully, freely, without fear." Something settled between them then, not a bond, not a claim, but a promise. When dawn finally came, the storm had weakened. The wind still howled, but the snow fell lighter now, less furious. Rowan stood at the cabin door, testing it. It opened with effort, light spilling in. "We can move soon," he said, "once you're steady." Elias nodded, then hesitated. "Rowan?" "Yes, if we survive this," Elias said softly. "I don't want to run anymore." Rowan turned fully to face him. "Then you won't," he said. "Not ever again." Outside, the storm was breaking. Inside, an Omega who had been cast into the snow without mercy was learning, slowly, painfully, that fate could be rewritten, and that sometimes the strongest bonds were the ones no one forced at all. The world beyond the cabin was quieter now. Not peaceful, winter never was, but subdued, as if the storm had finally exhausted itself. Snow still covered everything in deep, treacherous drifts, but the wind no longer screamed its fury. The sky was a pale, exhausted gray, stretched thin over a land that had survived something violent. Elias stood at the threshold, wrapped in Rowan's spare cloak, staring out at the frozen wilderness. For the first time since the elders had pointed him toward the white horizon and told him to run, the snow did not look like a death sentence. It looked like a path. "Don't rush it," Rowan said behind him. Elias nodded. His legs were still weak, the after effects of the suppressant and the heat leaving his body sluggish and aching. But he was standing, on his own. That alone felt like a quiet miracle. They moved slowly. Rowan walked beside him, not ahead, not behind, close enough to catch him if he fell, far enough to make it clear that Elias was choosing every step himself. The forest felt different in daylight, less monstrous, still dangerous, still unforgiving, but no longer endless. Elias focused on small things, the crunch of snow beneath his boots, the steady rhythm of Rowan's breathing, the way the cold air filled his lungs without burning this time. After an hour, Elias stumbled. Rowan's hand shot out instinctively, but Elias caught himself. He froze, heart hammering. Then he laughed. A breathless, disbelieving sound. "I didn't fall," he said. Rowan smiled, not wide, not triumphant, but proud in a way that made Elias's chest ache. "No," Rowan agreed, "you didn't." They reached the ridge by midday. From there, the land sloped downward toward the low valley where Rowan knew a trading road ran, one that led to towns that were not ruled by fearful elders or rigid pack laws, places where Omegas could live unclaimed if they wished, where choice meant something. Elias stood at the crest, staring down at it. "This is where I decide, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Rowan didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally, "it is." Elias turned to him. "You could have claimed me," Elias said. "No one would have blamed you. Nature would have backed you. The world would have accepted it." Rowan met his gaze steadily. "But you wouldn't have." The truth of it settled between them. Elias nodded slowly. "No, I wouldn't have." He took a shaky breath. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted. I don't know where I belong." Rowan stepped closer, not crowding, just present. "You don't have to know yet," he said. "Belonging isn't something you're handed, it's something you build." Elias studied him, really looked at him, not as an alpha, not as a savior, but as a man who had made a choice in the snow and lived with its weight. "And you?" Elias asked. "What do you choose?" Rowan exhaled, something uncoiling in his chest. "I choose to walk with you," he said, "if you want that. No bond, no claim, just company." The words mattered because of what they didn't demand. Elias felt something warm bloom in his chest. Not heat, not instinct, but something gentler and stronger. "I'd like that," he said. They descended together. The road appeared just as Rowan promised, packed snow marked by old tracks, proof of life moving forward despite winter's best efforts. Elias stepped onto it and stopped, emotion rising sharp and unexpected. This was where he had almost died. This was where his cry had torn through the snow and reached someone who refused to look away. He turned back once, looking at the forest behind them. It no longer felt like a grave. Rowan followed his gaze. "You survived," he said. Elias shook his head softly. "No, I was found." Rowan considered that, then nodded. "That too." They walked on. By nightfall, lights appeared ahead, warm, golden, human. Elias felt his throat tighten, fear and hope tangling together. "What if they smell me?" he asked quietly. "What if they see me as a problem?" Rowan glanced at him. "Then they'll answer to me. But more importantly, so will you." Elias straightened a little. "Yes," he said. "I will." When they reached the town, no one drove Elias into the snow. No one turned away in disgust. There were questions, wary looks, but also blankets, hot food, and space to breathe. Later, sitting by a fire that didn't feel like borrowed survival, Elias looked across the room at Rowan. The alpha met his gaze, steady as ever. Not owner, not savior, not fate, just someone who had answered a cry in the snow. And because of that single moment, because someone had chosen compassion over instinct, and Omega's fate had been changed forever, not by force, but by choice. And for the first time in his life, Elias believed that was enough. More stories will keep coming, so please don't forget to like and subscribe.